The number one most important thing for longevity is something you're probably already doing. Now, we could get very granular here and talk about different categories. The number one most important thing for exercise, the number one most important thing for your diet. But I want to talk about the overarching number one most important thing. And you're going to hear it, and you're going to turn this video off because you got your answer. But the joke's going to be on you because all the details are going to be in the rest of the video. It's about being as active as you can and moving as much as you can. But on the title and the thumbnail, I talk about 2 cups per day. Like, okay, is that clickbait or is this real? No, it's real. There's new literature published in 2023 that talks about caffeine intake. Caffeine intake improving physical frailty, making it so you're less physically frail. Big data. Okay, we're talking large amounts of data, over 12,000 people in this particular study. But I don't want to focus on the details of that study. I actually have already done videos on that. But what's interesting, I want to flash forward directly into what might be making this result, like what's causing this result. So let's dive into the details of this and also how much you should consider drinking, but also specific types of coffee that you should be drinking and the overarching piece of this. After today's video, I put a link down below for 25% off Seed's Daily Synbiotic. I actually had a call with the founders of Seed a couple of weeks ago. They are literally conducting like 16 or 17 simultaneous research projects right now, not even just using their product. They are literally trying to change the way we look at epithelial junctions, the tight protein junctions in the gut, and also our microbiome, even if it doesn't align with their actual brand, which for me shows a really good moral compass, and it aligns with how I've felt about their brand for a long time. So this is a synbiotic where it's a prebiotic and a probiotic in one capsule with sort of a multi-stage kind of delivery by having that technology in such a way. It's literally the only probiotic that I would recommend. I don't typically recommend them. And this one is 25% off using that link. And that link is down below in the top line of the description underneath this video. When I started taking it, I noticed it within a few days. My gut felt better, my complexion felt better, and I had more energy. And a lot of people say the same thing. So that link for 25% off is down below. The biggest reason that I can think of why coffee is having these impacts on physical frailty isn't because of some special mechanism in coffee. It's because it makes us more active. Being active is everything. As a matter of fact, Dr. Don Layman, who really is sort of the godfather of protein research, like Dr. Gabby Lyon, even Layne Norton, whether you like him or not, these guys have studied under Dr. Don Layman. And say what you want about Dr. Layne Norton, sure, he's got an attitude, sure, that's just how he is. But when it comes to protein science, like he really does know his stuff. And I know his persona online is a bit aggro sometimes, but dude, the guy knows what he's talking about with protein. Dr. Gabby Lyon, same thing. Like protein experts top in their field studied under Don Layman. Don Layman has said that 75% of protein synthesis or maintaining muscle is just the stimulation. The protein consumption is one thing, but the stimulation is everything. And when we're talking about longevity, what happens as we get older? We incrementally stop moving. And we can prefrontal cortex and willpower our way through this all we want. But at a certain point, our pain, our mobility, our inflammation is going to stand in the way. And this is where the literature shows that caffeine seems to reduce the physical frailty. It also reduces the time on what's called a time up and go test. That's how long it takes for people to sit up from a chair, walk, turn around, walk back to the chair and sit down. These things matter as we get older. And this is super important because if you're having the energy to get up and do this stuff, then remember you've done 75% of the work. We know that diet quality plays a role in our physical frailty, but it's arguably only 25 or 30% of the equation when activity is 70 to 75% of the equation. Now, if your activity level decreases, then diet becomes more important. And I'm not suggesting that you can outwork a bad diet. I mean, you kind of can to a certain degree, but it's not sustainable, right? It's not going to be sustainable. But what you do have to recognize is the more your activity level goes down, the more you have to be conscientious of your diet. But the more that your activity level can maintain, you can sort of live in this world where your diet can still be even mediocre as long as you're meeting these basic nutrient requirements and protein, and you're going to be okay. There's literature that suggests that drinking 1 to 2 cups of coffee gives you a 17% higher chance of meeting your daily physical guidelines. And this probably only goes up as you get older, because it might just be what Billy Bob needs to get out of the house is his cup of coffee. Granted, we could go down this rabbit hole of being tolerant and all this, but let's give some more practical playbooks and let's talk about like what kind of coffee and how you might want to do this. Because there's literature that suggests that tea can give you similar effects, but with less caffeine. Now, I'm a tea guy. I love coffee, but I'm still more of a tea guy. Tea arguably has more anti-inflammatory effects, more catechins, more polyphenols, more EGCG, which is a heavy fat oxidizer or increases fat oxidation, but also improves all kinds of inflammatory markers within the body. So it's probably a double whammy, where when you see coffee and tea drinkers, yes, they have caffeine, but is it really more of the antioxidants that are actually decreasing inflammation and making people more active and mobile and having more energy? Well, there's the metabolic side of things, and then there's just the brute strength side of things. So being able to drink tea and reduce the inflammation, so maybe you have less pain and you're willing to get up and go. And then coffee might be higher on the caffeine content that kind of allows you to overpower that, where it's independent of any kind of reduction of inflammation or sort of pain equation. Now, if you look at the study that was published in 2023 in JAMDA, this found that 4 cups of coffee led to the least physical frailty out of all the caffeine groups. That's a lot of caffeine. So 4 cups is really going to get you the least physical frailty. But what this didn't necessarily factor in was all-cause mortality risk as well, right? So if you are a highly active person, you could argue that your chances of developing some kind of chronic thing are going to be less, but you're also not finding that balance of like, okay, how long can I potentially live? Like, for example, if you were to ask me, like, Thomas, do you want to live to 100 and be bedridden for the last 10 years of your life? Or do you want to live to be, I don't know, 95 and be bedridden for the last 2 years of your life? I'd probably choose the latter, right? I'd rather live to 95 and have more living years, okay? But it's a different equation when you say, hey, you can live to 90, be bedridden for 5 years, or you can live to 70 and be active all the way up until death. Like, you're skipping out on 10 years of active life there, right? So there is a fine line. We got to find that line of diminishing return. And unfortunately, you and I aren't going to be around long enough to determine who wins in this longevity race. Oh, you drink 6 cups of coffee? Haha, joke's on you. I drink 3. I lived longer. Are we going to even remember this conversation then? But what we can do is look at what we see in the literature. And I do not think caffeine is problematic. So if you look at the benefits of the caffeine, you see the physical frailty decreases, okay? Cyclic adenosine monophosphate, your ability to oxidize fat, your ability to mobilize fat increases. It's the most studied and proven ergogenic aid to date. Grip strength, DNA synthesis, AKT signaling, satellite cells actually fusing the muscle to build muscle, to preserve muscle. All this stuff matters. Now, one of the most important things that you remember is the kind of coffee that you're drinking. So with this, you want to look at things like, is your coffee filtered? One of the best kinds of coffee that you could possibly drink in this case is going to be an organic, preferentially low acid, cold brewed coffee that's filtered. Cold brewing is going to filter more of the kawiol and the cafestol, which have been demonstrated to have negative metabolic effects. Okay, now even instant coffee seems to be really good because it's ultra filtered and ultra concentrated. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean that drinking unfiltered coffee every now and then is going to be problematic, but the more that you can go like the cold brew route, the better. Now, here's what I suggest. Since we see benefits from tea and we see benefits from coffee, some overlap and some are independent. Coffee has chlorogenic acid. It has some antioxidants. And most people get most of their antioxidants from their beverages than they do from their food. So the more that we can lean into antioxidant-rich beverages, the more we're going to have, the better impact we're going to have. And tea is definitely way above coffee when it comes down to antioxidants and it comes down to that category. So drink your coffee for your caffeine, and if you can, try alternating coffee days and tea days, coffee days and tea days. Because the other thing that we have to remember is, as you drink more coffee, you need more coffee. But theanine seems to counter this. Theanine seems to reduce your tolerance to coffee and caffeine. Theanine is in green tea. I notice that I can drink green tea most of the morning, and if I don't drink it the next couple days, I don't have withdrawal issues. But if I have a cup of coffee, it spikes me pretty high. Try alternating coffee 2 days, tea 1 day. Coffee 2 days, tea 1 day. And if you want to have tea, you can go quite heavy on the tea, alternating black tea and green tea, whatever you want to do there. But we have the literature to suggest that caffeine keeps you mobile and the antioxidants work in a different category. So as always, keep it locked in here on my channel, and I'll see you tomorrow.